Hello, and welcome to today's Credit for Prior Learning Professional Development session. Today's session, Lessons from CAEL-WHICHE CPL Equity Award winners, is intended to provide some basic insights into credit for prior learning at CUNY, and especially the role that faculty play in this work. We will also learn about the CAEL-WHICHE CPL Equity Awards, which are administrated by the Council on Adult and Experiential Learning, or CAEL. And we have Becky Klein-Collins, Vice President of Research and Impact at CAEL, here with us today to share more about this program and its work. We'll hear from her in a few minutes. After that, we will also hear about some exemplary practices at two CUNY colleges, both of which were honored in the inaugural CAEL-WHICHE CPL Equity Awards this year. So we have with us today Dr. Richard Finger, Vice President of Enrollment Management at Lehman College, along with his colleague Alisa Cooper, who is the Credit for Prior Learning Coordinator at Lehman. Additionally, we'll hear from Holli Broadfoot, who's the Experiential Learning Director at the CUNY School of Professional Studies. First, we'll do a little level setting. So CUNY defines credit for prior learning, which we'll call CPL, and it's also known as prior learning assessment, or PLA. These terms are often used interchangeably. But CPL is an academic process that offers students the opportunity to earn credits for college-level learning acquired outside the traditional classroom. CAEL goes a little further in their definition to say that CPL is a set of methods for assessing non-collegiate learning for college credit based on recognition that the outcome of learning is more important than the pathway to it, and that people can learn the same things in a variety of modes. For those that aren't familiar, CUNY's CPL policy was first established back in 2020, and the policy really lays some frameworks by which colleges can identify and recognize college-level learning using nationally normed standards and methodologies, and doing so in a way that provides equal treatment in how these credits apply toward degrees. The specific methods for credit for prior learning that are named in CUNY's policy include standardized exams. AP and CLEP are two that are often familiar. There are more as well. There's also non-collegiate coursework, which can include professional licenses, industry certifications, and workplace trainings, military trainings and occupations. And then there are other forms of learning that can be assessed through an individualized portfolio assessment process or through departmental challenge exams. There's a lot more detail on all of this that's covered in the first CPL PD session that we held back in September, which is now available on the CPL website. And we also have an online self-paced CPL PD course in Blackboard that's available to all faculty and staff across CUNY. So I would definitely invite anybody that's newer to credit for prior learning and interested in learning more about what all of the last few slides refer to definitely check that out and consider those resources for getting a little more up to speed. I'm going to share very quickly a short video that I think is helpful for thinking about the role that faculty really must play in credit for prior learning across CUNY.
New York City is full of hardworking people whose jobs require technical skills and competencies that are deeply relevant to college-level courses.
For many of these people who haven't completed or attended college, the journey to a degree can feel overwhelming, expensive, and uncertain.
But because we know learning happens everywhere, credit for prior learning at the City University of New York gives eligible students the ability to earn academic credits for knowledge and skills gained outside the classroom.
National data shows that students receiving CPL credit are more likely to persist and graduate, with even greater benefits for those from underrepresented backgrounds.
CPL helps students meet academic requirements, boost their confidence, and save time and money on their path to earning a degree.
But CPL relies heavily on the involvement of faculty, who can verify the integrity and rigor of learning experiences.
It is the faculty who must decide how different types of learning, such as on-the-job training, professional certifications, and specialized skills, align with their department's curriculum.
But here's the thing.
Without the leadership and participation of faculty, all of the benefits of access, equity, and opportunity that CPL offers disappear.
Countless potential students possess the knowledge and skills to enrich the college community, and recognizing these abilities can be key in their decision to choose CUNY.
This academic year, begin integrating CPL into your department's strategy for recruiting, welcoming, and supporting the success of students.
Learn more, get involved, and join CUNY in empowering more New Yorkers to achieve their goals.
All right, so today we will be hearing from two colleges that are deep in their CPL implementation work and who have demonstrated results about how CPL can serve as an equity lever and a student success mechanism. And we'll also hear from them about the ways that they're really engaging faculty in this work. We know from CAEL's research, particularly the PLA Boost report from 2020, that CAEL can increase completion, persistence, and it can also save students time and money. There's a lot more information in the PLA Boost report, and a lot of the information that I'll go through in the next couple of slides we'll move through very quickly, but the slide deck will be available after the session, and in general, the PLA Boost report can be a great resource for understanding more about the impact that this work can have. We know that all of the impacts that CPL can have in terms of completion and persistence and saving time and money, all of these can have an even greater impact for students who are from underrepresented backgrounds. But the CAEL report also really goes into the fact that there's a paradox that exists here about the fact that CPL is underutilized by the very students who are shown to benefit from it the most. And at CUNY, this is particularly important for us to think about because of the demographics of the population that we serve. On the right here, you can see how CUNY serves very large percentages of the student groups, much more so than is the case in the national data. And this really points to the opportunity and the potential for scale that CPL holds at CUNY. And for these reasons, we thought that bringing some examples for how a couple of CUNY colleges are engaged in this work and how they're being recognized for this work would be important. So today we will hear from Lehman College and the CUNY School of Professional Studies, both of whom were honored as inaugural recipients of the CAEL-WHICHE CPL Equity Awards. But before we hear from them, we have with us today Becky Klein-Collins from CAEL to tell us a little bit more about the awards program and the impact of CPL work from that organization's perspective. Becky.
Hi. Well, I hope I'm providing you with what you need for this session. So thank you, Alisa, for this great background, and hi, everybody, and some familiar faces in the groups. Glad to see you all. What I wanted to do is just to expand a little bit on what Alisa was talking about in terms of what we've learned from the research around CPL being an equity lever, but also there being an equity paradox. And what we mean by that is that there's real clear evidence from the data that we've studied that students with CPL have better academic outcomes compared to similar students without CPL. So we know that from the research. And we also know that when you disaggregate by different student subgroups, all different races, ethnicities, income levels, gender, all the different subgroups that we've studied, this is true for those different groups as well. And so that would seem like, CPL could be a great strategy for supporting credential completion and academic success in general for all students. However, we also learned from our research that many of the subgroups that we care about from an equity standpoint, particularly lower income, Black students, community college students, these are also the groups that we found to be the least likely to have engaged with CPL and have earned those kinds of credits. So really, we were concerned about, well, how do we make sure that this really great opportunity to accelerate towards a degree is accessible to everybody and is being used by everybody? And so when we explored, okay, why is it that we're seeing this kind of trend? We did a few interviews with institutions to kind of get their perspectives and their opinions on this. And what we heard from them is that there were some likely explanations for what we were seeing in the data. One is that there's likely a problem in terms of the out-of-pocket cost to the student for a lot of CPL programs. So if you have a student who is dependent on Pell Grants or federal financial aid of other types, those are not, CPL is not an eligible expense for those. And so you're asking a student to pay out of pocket for something that, they could just, take the class and get paid for through other means. And so that creates a barrier to access. Another is just the way that CPL is marketed, messages that are sent, and whether they're reaching the right populations at the right time in the student's journey. So really thinking about, marketing and outreach and advising. And then third, which was an interesting thing to hear, we heard about maybe the fact that a lot of CPL programs are focused on kind of the low-hanging fruit when it comes to extra institutional learning. So managers who have kind of leadership skills, IT professionals with easily, assessed kind of technical skills, those things like that, where maybe some CPL advisors are maybe not thinking creatively about, well, who are my students and what kind of learning are they bringing in, and can we think more creatively about how to map different types of learning from different types of work experiences outside the ones that are being used to seeing, or whether historically or just in general in our programs. And then finally, issues around learner self-confidence. So we all know that adult learners are coming with a lot of kind of previous conceived ideas about themselves as learners. And, if you're somebody who maybe has some doubts about your academic ability, you're not going to hear messages about CPL and think, oh, that's me, or that's something I can do. So the self-confidence issue may be, partly at play here as well. But these are all sort of, we think this might be happening. We think this is the explanation. So with that as the background, CAEL really wanted to find examples of institutions that have successfully closed their own equity gaps. We wanted to hear what they did, really get some more detail about what strategies worked, and really have them show the data that demonstrates what it is that they did and how successful it was. So we were really happy to announce this Equity Awards initiative much earlier this year. Got a number of really great submissions, and we're happy to have two of our award winners from the CUNY system. And that's what we're going to be hearing about today. So that's sort of the background of why we did these awards. We really wanted to kind of get a little bit more meat on the bones for understanding how to approach equity gaps in CPL programs. Some of the themes that we sort of gathered from the award winners. One is that, a really important first step in trying to tackle this is to take a really close look at your own data to identify what are the equity gaps that are existing, in your particular institutional context. It's different for every institution in terms of how you're defining equity and who's being reached and who is not. We also saw some pattern of using professional and occupational programs as one way to kind of target important student subgroups, and that's what we saw in the Lehman program. And then next is raising the visibility of CPL, really thinking about how you're getting messages and around CPL out, the marketing, and just at which point in the process you're reaching students. Are you getting people at multiple points of their journey, and sort of beefing up the advising around CPL as well. And then finally, really, how do you engage the entire institution in this effort? I liked your video on engaging faculty and how important faculty are, and that's just one of the pieces of kind of the puzzle in terms of really thinking about how to make CPL more of an institution-wide offering that everyone is on board with and is supporting and promoting. Finally, one of the things we kind of kept an eye out for is some really creative approaches to closing equity gaps through CPL. in either defining equity populations or designing a new way to use CPL. And that's where we really kind of tapped CUNY SPS in terms of their Jumpstart program. And so I know that Jennifer's going to be talking about that later today. But anyway, so we're going to be presenting this at the CAEL conference next week. And so all of you who are going to be there I hope there will some of you there. And so please seek me out, and I'd love to sort of hear a little bit more about what you're doing there. And I really do hope that we can do these awards again in the future. Obviously, this is something that CAEL funded ourselves this past year. And so it's kind of funding dependent. If we can do it ourselves again, that's great. If we can find external funders, we might try that too. So we would definitely want to try it again. So keep your eyes out for that.
Thank you so much, Becky. It's great to get that context and perspective from you. We'll now turn it over to, as Becky referred to it, to really hear about the meat of this work. And we'll start with the Lehman team. So we'll turn it over to Richard and Alisa.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be with everybody this afternoon. I'm actually so impressed that so many people on a Friday afternoon, it's a beautiful day, are on the call. Richard Finger, I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Management here at Lehman. I'll let Alisa introduce herself in a minute. But I'll say this work is very important to us. The work that we're doing with credit for prior learning as it relates to equity is increasingly, I think, a part of our business process. We talk about it more and more on campus. I think when the president of Lehman, Dr. Fernando Delgado, talks about access, social mobility, and academic excellence as the three core things that we strive for, I think that this work fits nicely among those three things. So we're really excited to share with you what we're doing here at Lehman and our approaches to it, and know that, I think thematically what you're going to hear today is that this is a community-driven project. This is community-driven work led by our faculty, led by different administrative and advising units, but we're all in this work together. So let Alisa introduce herself, and I think she's got the first couple of slides.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alisa Cooper, and I'm the Credit for Prior Learning Coordinator at Lehman. And I really support what Richard said, and I have really become passionate about this work that we are doing at Lehman, and where we started and where we continue to grow as an institution. So with that said, let's get started. So really, when we talk about credit for prior learning and the work that we do and our goals, it's really important, I feel, to know who we are as an institution. So Lehman is located in the nation's poorest congressional district in the county that ranks second to last in educational attainment for New York State. But it's also important to note that the college consistently ranks high in social mobility for most national rankings. These are important factors to consider when we enhance our CPL opportunities at the college and making earning credits more attainable for students in terms of the burden of time and any financial stressors. So that brings me to the Lehman College students. So this is really the heart of our programming and the reason for what we do. So who is the Lehman College student? So the average age of the Lehman College student is 27, and it's important to note about 90% of Lehman College students are from underrepresented groups, and also about 76% of the Lehman College students do receive some institutional support. So again, this is an important statistic to point out when we discuss our goals with credit for prior learning at Lehman and creating and providing opportunities for our students. So credit for prior learning at Lehman, the first 40 years to the present. So just to give a little context about CPL at the college. So CPL has always been ingrained in the Lehman campus culture. We have a robust portfolio program, which is housed in the adult degree program. We had a pre-existing framework for CPL that includes CLEP, AP, IB, military service, just to name a few. In 2019, I was actually brought in to start my work at the college with CPL from a grant through the College Completion Innovation Fund called Race to the Finish Line. And at the time, we were using that pre-existing framework to really assist our near completers, students who were within 3 to 9 credits short of completing their degrees, and using, again, that pre-existing framework to help them fill in the gaps and complete their degrees at low cost and low time commitments. A lot of students were out of funding at the time, so we even were able to provide some aid through the grant to help them take advantage of some of those CPL opportunities. We are presently working with faculty and staff to award more credit upon entry and develop opportunities with departments and staff that align with degree completion and also, again, alleviate some of the financial and time burdens. So, Richard, I'll let you step in here.
So as we started to do that work, we started to look at what was happening, and organically we realized there were so many opportunities to serve students who, through credit for prior learning, particularly looking at a student who is from an underrepresented group, or certainly from with very limited financial means. And we started to really dig into the idea of looking at students who've exhausted their aid eligibility and identifying alternate pathways for them to complete their degree through CPL. Looking at that elective bucket, which is very important, of course, as part of the degree program, but for a student who may not be able to afford their courses, or if life gets in the way, and you'll hear about a student in that situation a little bit later, able to help them complete their degrees. We also looked at the eligibility to maintain New York State Excelsior Scholarship status, and worked to identify ways to create a bucket of credits that a student can have to draw on should they not meet the academic momentum goals set by Excelsior. We looked at alternatives, things like looking at ways to promote students earning credits during winter and summer if they didn't have the means to do so otherwise. We engaged students in academic momentum discussions while they were stopped out as they prepared to return. And more recently, we've started to focus on things on validating the work that students are doing in high schools and through bridge programs to award credits there. Of course, none of this happens without engaging in the ongoing assessment of workforce credentials, and even more recently, starting to look at graduate level learning experiences and articulating those credits for graduate students. We certainly have done some of this with our New York City Teaching Fellows program. We've done this with other certification pathways in other areas as well over the last couple of years. So we've really diversified our approach to credit for prior learning, all of it really being rooted in student success, and particularly being rooted to bridge that socioeconomic difference between for students who just don't have the funds to pay for college.
A campus-wide approach to supporting credit for prior learning. As you can see here, there are so many key players involved in supporting the work that we do with credit for prior learning. All the different departments at Lehman, all the different schools, all offices who engage in advising students. I'd like to really point out the registrar's office. They are a big supporter of our program and help us spread the word to our students and help them take advantage of a lot of the initiatives that we set forward. So this is just a brief overview, but I think we have and many more there because there really are so many key players that help us do the work that we do at Lehman. So highlighting our efforts with academic departments, again, I'm going to try to tone it down here, but I feel like we have really done so much valuable work with so many different departments at the institution. So I'm just going to highlight a few here. And Richard, please step in if you want to add anything to any of the schools that I'm about to highlight a little bit. The School of Business, I would say, is one of the early key players in some of the expansion work that we did with credit for prior learning. They really found that there was a need to fill in the gap for New York State requirements for students completing degrees, and we're falling short of liberal arts elective credits. So we worked very closely with the dean and faculty, and they selected coursework through the platform Coursera, and they did work in evaluating certificates where students could earn economics elective credit that was aligned with coursework already offered in their program. So it really complemented the work that students were doing already very nicely. And some of those, for example, were really interesting courses: economics of game theory, economics of healthcare and delivery, game theory, African development from past to present. And these were awarded economics credit, but the great benefit to this was that it also was able to serve our general student population. So they benefited from this collaboration that we did with the School of Business. So if students, outside of those majors needed to take advantage of these opportunities, they were certainly welcome to do that. Also the School of Education. So it's interesting, the Department of Education, they registered their training sessions in the New York State Teaching Collaborative with the National College Credit Recommendation Service. So any students who completed these types of trainings through the DOE would get an official transcript at the end of their work. Lehman then evaluated these training sessions with faculty and program coordinators, and we were able to award students 9 credits towards their graduate and education work. So this included 3 credits in student teaching seminar, their practicum, and student teaching diverse learners with disabilities in specialized settings. So that was a great initiative that we partnered with the DOE on. And one more that I would just love to highlight is our work with the School of Natural and Social Sciences. And here we were able to focus on some credit upon entry. We worked with the NYPD Cadet Academy to evaluate the coursework that cadets were completing in order to complete that entire program. So the School of Political Science evaluated the coursework that the NYPD provided us, and we are now able to award incoming students who present this transcript with 6 credits in political science coursework, which was really amazing. They could use it to pursue a degree in political science. If not, it is still relevant credit that they could apply towards their degrees. This approach to collaborating, it really, again, reduces the time and cost barriers that align with educational and career goals. So,
if I could just add, I think, our approach remains the same, and it's remained pretty consistent over the last 5 years that we've been focusing on this. Whenever an administrative unit is presented with a barrier or an opportunity from the academic side of the house, our solution, we're quick to identify ways to leverage CPL or similar opportunities,
right,
to solve the problem or the opportunity presented. And the faculty have been on board, and the faculty have really worked with us. And when we look at the outcomes and we see that we're meeting our desired goals, all of a sudden this grows. And we've had points over the last couple of years, because this is not we don't have a full-time staff dedicated to it. Alisa has part-time staff, and that we've had to just slow down a little bit because we find ourselves getting ahead of ourselves and regroup. So this has been really successful.
I think I saw someone just had a question about how we get our faculty on staff.
So, culturally, this question we get asked a lot, and I think culturally we are a collaborative community. There's no question about that at Lehman. So the culture works well for collaboration. And I think that there's a lot of trust between faculty and administration on the campus. And as such, that when we were started to talk to the faculty about solutions leveraging CPL, they were receptive to it and they were willing to try. And I think it worked out pretty well.
And I think also a lot of times, there's information brought to faculty in the departments that they're excited about, and now we're a resource for them to collaborate and really turn that into something. So it's kind of happened, I think, rather organically at Lehman that way.
It looks like we have some more questions in the chat, but I think maybe if we can keep moving so that we make sure we get to SPS's presentation, and hopefully we'll have time for questions a little later in the session.
So I guess here I'll touch a little bit more on investing time with training of faculty and staff, and maybe that'll answer some questions. But it really is essential for creating equitable programs for several reasons. So, faculty can really enhance awareness of the diverse student experiences and learning styles, and help students recognize all the various forms of knowledge that they're bringing to the table. An educated faculty can really contribute to the creation of transparent and equitable CPL policies, and helping students understand how their experiences can really translate to academic credit, because I think that happens a lot too, that students are bringing in their outside experiences to faculty and staff. And when they hear that, it really is relevant and worth turning into some more concrete CPL opportunities. Again, with that said, a trained faculty and staff can also support our students in navigating the process and reducing barriers to participating in taking advantage of CPL opportunities. So I think that's very important. So I think we're actually going to hear from some of our support staff at the college who has really helped us collaborate on this type of work and share opportunities with students, which again, I think, this is the type of work that creates some of that buzz and excitement with the department. So we have somebody from our registrar's office, one of the graduation specialists, and we really do work closely with our registrar's office because oh, wait, go back. I think, yeah. So there is a video here, Alisa, if you don't mind, you could just hit play and I'd love to hear from.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank you, Alisa, and the Alternative Credit Office for the opportunity to share some of our experiences with the alternative credit options and credit for prior learning. My name is Alisa, and I'm one of 4 undergraduate graduation specialists for Lehman College's Office of the Registrar. As a graduation specialist, we're responsible for auditing the records of students who've applied for graduation, as well as serving as final year advisors for students in our respective cohorts. This is an extremely rewarding job as it provides us the opportunity to meet and get to know students in our cohorts. And speaking with seniors who have their own experiences, have mastered our processes, and are excited to share their plans and career goals adds to the rewarding experience. But as with anything, there's pros and cons. One of the hardest parts of our job is having to inform graduation applicants that they do not have the requirements needed to graduate for the semester that they've anticipated. Now, this could be due to a myriad of factors, but regardless of the cause, breaking that news can be extremely difficult. Fortunately now, for students that are at risk of having their graduation applications canceled as a result of missing elective credits, we can offer an avenue for credit attainment that allows them to remain eligible for the semester that they hope to be graduating for. This not only allows our students to keep those job offers, but also relieves the financial burden that an additional semester can create. Since the creation of the Alternative Credit Office, we've been able to provide that avenue to students, and the response has been simply amazing. One could imagine the relief that these students feel when they've been informed that they won't be meeting graduation requirements due to credits, to being told that there's still an opportunity that they can take advantage of to earn those additional credits while remaining eligible for the same term as graduation. In addition to being offered that option to earn the additional credits, the flexibility of the alternative credit options is also a major benefit. The fact that many of these course offerings are online and allow students to complete them at their own pace is also a great benefit to our students, many of them having to deal with packed schedules between their personal lives and their courses. To put it simply, we graduation specialists are extremely appreciative of the Alternative Credit Office and Credit for Prior Learning for the additional opportunities they offer to our hardworking students. Thank you.
Okay. And so that's Adelaide. He's a really rising star for us. And here's just an example from a student who is a DACA recipient. This student was really about to give up on their educational experience, and they were able to not only finish their bachelor's degree, but now they've continued on into their master's program. And then finally, one of the things that I'm challenged with is even to use the word credit for prior learning. We started off by calling it credit for prior learning, but in the age of lifelong learning and lifelong training and development, maybe it isn't prior learning anymore. So we were talking about alternative credit options. Well, maybe it's not that either, but really is it maybe credit for competency acquired, particularly that I'm not so sure that we need to just associate credit for prior learning with adults anymore. I met one of our freshmen this year. He's got 4 million followers on social media. And if you have 4 million followers on social media, I think that's credit-worthy somewhere there in a portfolio of how you built that, among other things, language skills, experiences, et cetera. And then finally, these are the numbers. About 4,500 students at CPL, credits posted on their records, 19,000 credits awarded. 57% of those students use those credits to complete their degree. 92.8% from underrepresented groups, just under 72% female, 51% over the age of 25. And we're really, like I said, we're passionate about this work. This is work that we really believe in, and we'll be happy at the end of all of this to take some questions once we get through the presentation. In the meantime, I will be a little self-indulgent, and there was an article written up about this work in ASCU this week, so I will share a link to that article in the chat. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much, Richard and Alisa, for that great information. We will now pass over to Holli Broadfoot, Experiential Learning Director from CUNY SPS.
Hi, everyone. I'll try to kind of get through this quick, so there's little bit of time for people to ask more questions. And I'm going to take a slightly different focus and talk more about specifically within our CPL program, how faculty are an integral part in every step along the way. So let's dive in. So in many ways, CPL is like a baking show. Students bring a mix of experiences, but they need all of our help to succeed. So what this is a picture from one of the most popular baking shows, which is on right now, the Great British Baking Show. And as we know, for anybody who's watched this show or any sort of baking show, the bakers clearly exist on a spectrum. Some have clear know-how and understand the best practices of making various types of baking, and some make really big missteps each week because they just don't have the knowledge and the nuances of what they're doing. And that description sounds a lot like our students who are trying to navigate CPL with their own unique set of ingredients and know-how. So in order to best support our amateur bakers, which are our students, it's critical that we have a strong pantry, recipes, bakers, and judges to help them make meaning of their knowledge and experiences and apply them to their college degree. And it's together all these elements work in harmony. Your pantry and your CPL offerings. So a well-stocked CPL pantry means offering students options that align with their unique experiences, whether that's military service, exams, portfolios, certifications, or anything else that may come down the pike. But no one wants to see an empty pantry. So all of you as faculty, you are key in keeping this pantry stocked with a robust selection of CPL options. It's your expertise that helps identify the certifications, the skills, and the essential emerging industry trends that are valuable to students. This is what's going to help keep your CPL offerings and remain relevant. And these are some of the best practices we have found that help faculty make the most of our CPL. Always start by understanding who your students are and what experiences they bring. Now on to recipes. So let's consider the role of our recipes and how that plays in the process. The path to earning credit through CPL can feel very confusing to all of our students. So without clear guidance, students may feel unsure, they can feel lost, they can feel unclear about how to navigate all of these options. So students who are feeling overwhelmed or confused when they first encounter CPL, that's where these offerings and these recipes come into play, because it takes more than just the well-stocked pantry. So it's essential to keep all of our offerings relevant. First of all, we need to audit them periodically. We need to take the time to evaluate how CPL fits into the overall student experience. Clear communication is critical. Advisor training, easy to understand tools, and clear CPL policies, all of these will help ensure that our students can easily access the information they need. This is our recipes at all of our colleges. Now, our bakers, CPL faculty and staff. Faculty, you're in a very unique position to provide clarity on the CPL opportunities. You can do this by incorporating discussions in your classroom. You can make CPL less intimidating, and you help make it more accessible to the students. You are some of the most critical advisors who help students connect their prior learning to their current academic goals. You are an essential part of the whole CPL ecosystem. So some of the best practices, if possible, it's important to have staff solely dedicated to CPL. These experts can help guide students through the process and ensure smooth experience, and they also can be a big asset to faculty. It's also important to regularly assess your advising infrastructure. Are the advising teams trained in CPL? Next, collaboration is key. Work with other departments, and this way you can raise awareness about CPL opportunities that may belong in more than one department, and it also helps you build a network of advocates. And finally, it's really, really important to listen to student feedback. And this is also where faculty can come in, because you're the ones who are talking to your students every day. If students feel supported, they're going to be more likely to succeed in CPL, and that's going to ultimately benefit both the students and your institution. Now, on to our judges, the CPL data. Tracking how students use CPL is crucial for understanding its impact. We can see where students benefit most and where we need to improve. Gathering and analyzing the data also helps make the case for expanding those CPL offerings and securing the resources needed to support this valuable program. Now we're going to take a look at a couple pieces of data from SPS. What you're seeing here is a comparison of graduation rates for students with CPL versus those without across multiple cohorts from 2017 onwards. The yellow highlighted columns represent students who've earned CPL credits. And as you can see in every term, our students with CPL consistently graduated at a higher percentage than those without CPL at the same time mark. For example, the 21-22 cohort, 2-year graduation rate, CPL students graduated 38% of them, 27% compared to 19 and 8 for non-CPL students. So this data helps tell a clear story. CPL is not about giving students credit for, it's not just about giving students credit for what they've already learned. It's a pathway, and that pathway can increase their likelihood of completing the degree. So the question then is, why do we think this is happening? CPL gives students a sense of progress. It saves them time and money, but it also provides that tangible link between their past learning and their current academic journey. And all of these factors help boost their confidence. It helps boost their motivation, and this leads to higher retention and graduation rates. When students graduate at higher rates, it's a win-win for all of us. Now I'm going to shift the focus to our 1-year retention rates, which is another really important metric that helps us understand the impact of CPL on student success. This slide shows data from 2018, 19 to the present, and covers our fall and spring terms. And this data shows that for every term, students with CPL consistently have a higher 1-year retention rate compared to those without CPL. Now, this pattern is important because it demonstrates that CPL doesn't just help students graduate faster, it also helps them stay on track in that first year they're with all of our colleges, and that's critical. Why is this the case? Students who receive CPL often feel a stronger sense of progress and accomplishment. They enter their programs with credits already earned, which can boost their confidence and engagement. Knowing they've been acknowledged for their prior learning motivates them to stay on course. And these higher retention rates indicate that CPL not only benefits students academically, it keeps them invested in their education, and that leads to a more successful academic experience overall. So what are a few practices about the data? Well, knowing which students are using CPL and how they're using it can help us decide where to invest our time, energy, and resources. If we see a particular program or CPL option underutilized or one that's highly successful, that means we can adjust our efforts accordingly. Tracking the data lets us be strategic in concentrating limited resources where they're most needed. Data also provides objective evidence of the benefit CPL offers to both the students and our colleges. To the extent possible, we should be tracking how CPL credits fit into the student's academic journey. Are the credits helping them fulfill degree requirements, or are they simply providing elective credits? This type of insight lets us understand the true value that the CPL is providing to the student's progression toward graduation. So using CPL data effectively allows us to make data-driven decisions that support our student success and improves the CPL process and ensures that we're allocating our resources wisely. And I wanted to touch briefly, Alisa asked me to mention our credit for portfolio evaluation. So I just want to speak a minute on that. Colleges typically use one of two options to evaluate and grant credit for a portfolio. One way is to have a student write a paper about their work history and knowledge, and then that's read, and then credit is basically randomly assigned. At SPS, our students create the portfolios petitioning credit for a specific course. They write to the course learning outcomes. They learn the process of writing a portfolio this way by taking a required 3-credit course, PLA 300. Now, there are a number of reasons why we chose to write to a specific course beyond we were trying to use CAEL's best practices. One is alignment with academic standards. Writing a portfolio that addresses specific course learning outcomes ensures that the student's knowledge and experiences align with the academic rigor and expectations of the course. A course-based portfolio encourages the student to focus on demonstrating knowledge, skills, and competencies, no matter where they gain them, particularly if it's outside the workplace, and that focus directly can relate to the curriculum. A portfolio structured around course learning outcomes, we have found, ensures that all students are assessed against the same academic standard, and this is what fosters a fair and equitable process. General work history portfolios can result in inconsistent evaluations where personal biases and subjective judgments can influence the credit awarded. So by targeting specific courses in their learning outcomes, students are more likely to see how their prior learning can apply to their degree path. This type of clarity helps them understand the value of their experience in the context of their academic journey, rather than submitting a broad, unfocused work history that may not directly contribute to their progression. And then, of course, it helps with faculty guidance and feedback. Because a course-based portfolio allows faculty, it allows you to provide a more structured and targeted feedback, because you can clearly assess how well a student's prior learning maps to each learning outcome. This ensures that the student receives actionable insights into the areas of strength and areas that may need further development. This is a quote that was shared by me by a student of mine after completing PLA 300, which I have taught a few times. And PLA 300 is that 3-credit course that's required for students to learn how to write a portfolio before they present it for credit. And I want to share this with you because it illustrates why this process is so much more than just a means to get credit. It's a truly transformational process for many of our students. The student writes, "I came to self-actualization in your class." This shows how much the process of engaging with their own experiences, reflecting on them, and aligning them with academic standards can help students not only organize their work, but also recognize the value of their life experiences. And it's something many may not have done before. One of the most powerful lines is when the student says, "I truly feel empowered by this coursework and feedback." This is a reminder of how important our feedback and faculty feedback is in this entire process. In the case of a portfolio, this guiding them to critically examine their experiences is not just assessing their portfolio, but it's helping them grow as individuals. This student story highlights how this portfolio process and this portfolio course isn't just about getting credit for prior learning. It goes beyond that portfolio. It's about personal growth, confidence, and empowerment. They discover to move their self-worth through the process. And as faculty, each one of you have a unique opportunity to facilitate that journey. As educators, it's easy to focus on the portfolio as a tool for assessing prior learning. But we have to remember that for students, this is often a deeply personal process that can have far-reaching effects. In this case, the student didn't just gain academic credit. They gained confidence to take on new professional roles, such as becoming an educational consultant for a nonprofit, and even pursue personal goals like publishing a novel. So this quote is a powerful reminder of how an entire CPL process can play an integral part. So it's not just about assigning credit. It's about guiding students to recognize the value in their own stories and experiences, empowering them to move forward with confidence, both in their academic journey and in their personal lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Holly. It was really great, and it's great to end on a student voice like that. I think that is such an important way for us to think about the impact of this work. This brings us to the end of our presentations for today. If there are questions, we have just a couple minutes left. Let's see. Oh, yes, I agree. Fantastic presentations from both colleges. It's fantastic to get this this level of detail about two really interesting and successful CPL programs at CUNY. If there are any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. While I wait to see if anything pops up, I will also just take a moment to invite any follow-up questions or questions to direct to any of our presenters today. We would really welcome the dialogue and the ongoing collaboration and insight. Oh, how can we work toward increasing CPL opportunities for graduate level students? That's a great question. Richard, do you want to say a few words on how? I know that you had mentioned that that's something you're starting to look into at Lehman.
We are, outside of stuff that comes in on different types of transcript and equivalents, I think one of the things that we've built into our Master of Arts in Liberal Studies is the opportunity to do a life experience portfolio. And I know that over the years that the program has existed, we have had a handful of students who have earned credits for life experience, credits for prior learning based on some of the work that they've done previously. For example, we had somebody who, as they were enrolling in the program, also had a film that they produced being featured at the Sundance Film Festival and things like that. So there were graduate level activities where there was credit worthiness that it was deemed and they were awarded credits. So it's small, but it certainly is it's small, but it certainly is it's something that we do focus on when the opportunity prevails.
I'll also mention that, I think that while CUNY's CPL policy, like if you read it, it's really geared toward undergraduate education, but it certainly doesn't preclude us from considering graduate level CPL where it makes sense. And I think that there are different kinds of training and certifications that are earned professionally by people who do already have a college degree where one is required for their job or otherwise. So so I would say for folks who are thinking about how CPL could be relevant to graduate level programs, I would think expansively and creatively about that, and know that that my office would be happy to help and to assist in thinking that through at any time. And I think we're really at our final moment here. So if there are any other questions, let me see if there's one more that just popped up here. Yes, it is. There is nuance to be considered. Thank you, Jennifer, for chiming in with that. I think that it'll be an ongoing journey and learning experience for CUNY's CPL efforts to start to think at different levels like that. But I think it is important, and we should remain open to it as we're exploring these different ideas. And please feel free to continue to reach out to me or to any of our presenters today with any questions or ideas. And I also really hope to see see any of you, all of you, at future CPL professional development sessions that are taking place as the semester and the year goes on. And I would also encourage you to take advantage of our online self-paced PD course that's in Blackboard. And I will be sharing the slide deck and the full session recording with everyone who registered for today's session. We'll also be posting it on the CPL website. So please stay in touch and continue to check in with ideas and progress at your own campuses, and know that we're really excited to continue working and to start working with anybody who is new to this space. And thank you all so much for coming today. And yes, thank you so much to our presenters. Really lovely to hear about the great work that you're doing, and many thanks to CAEL for all of their support and ways that they are enabling credit for prior learning, not just at CUNY, but nationally.